Hello and welcome to The Art of Conversation, a radio show dedicated to a college course dedicated to the art of conversation. This program is brought to you by the Eileen G. Jones Honors College and the Department of Communication Studies, Media, and Journalism at Commonwealth University here in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Eric C. Miller, Professor of Communication Studies. This show is the official radio presence of Honors 211, The Art of Conversation, a course that focuses on the ancient art of dialectic. That is, the collaborative process by which knowledgeable peers pursue the truth through focused question and answer, back and forth, what is often called Socratic discussion. After a few weeks of wading through the theory on these matters, our students spend about 10 weeks in practice, holding twice weekly 75-minute deep dives into topics and questions of their choosing. Our theme this semester is the good life in the Great Acceleration, and all of our content falls somewhere within this intentionally wide umbrella. Each week, we're talking about how to live good lives in an era of soaring economic growth, technological innovation, labor market uncertainty, political turbulence, climate change, mass extinction, and on and on. My guests today are Emma and Brian, a pair of student moderators who this week asked us to think a bit about the effects of social media on children. Emma and Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for being here. Before we dive into our subject matter today, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Where are you from? What's your major? What has sparked your interest in social media use among children?
I'm Brian. I am from Ashland, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes south of Bloomsburg. My major at Bloomsburg is cybersecurity and digital forensics. I'm a first-year student. I've had personal past with social media use that wasn't too positive, and I just think it was something that I was passionate enough about to speak about.
Yeah, my name's Emma. I am a first-year on-campus student. I'm a nursing major with a minor in pre-med. I'm from a small town called Herndon, about 40 minutes south from here. I'm very interested in social media, especially with little kids, because my younger sister is still young and in middle school, and I see a lot of children on social media doing a lot of dangerous things, and that sparks my interest.
As I mentioned in class yesterday, I think social media is a fascinating topic of discussion because it's extremely popular. Everybody is on it, it seems, in one form or another. And everyone seems to recognize that it causes lots of problems for people. Despite that, when I ask them if it causes problems and if it makes your life worse in these ways, are you going to quit and close your account? The answer is always no, of course not. How would I even connect to the social world without these platforms? And so there's a paradox here in that we have these platforms that are everywhere, everybody's on them, everybody's using them all the time to the point where they feel like they're addicted to them. And yet when you ask them to try and step back or to downsize or to quit, it's just like an unthinkable suggestion. But maybe it gets a little bit clearer when it concerns children, which of course is what we're going to get into today. Before we do that though, let's give social media its due. In your mind, what is it about social media that is good, that is positive, that is commendable?
I would say, first of all, meeting people is the most important thing to do on social media. There are no negatives to meeting new people and getting yourself out there. Now, after you meet people, that's when you might want to get off social media, talk to them in person, recognizing the social cues that you might not over a screen.
Well, can I ask a quick follow-up to that? Because I think for most people, I assume that when you get to college, for example, most people meet others in passing at orientation or on their hall or a friend of a friend, and then add them on social media to be connected to them so that it wasn't just a passing interaction. What you're describing sounds to me like people who meet each other online first and then maintain specifically online relationships. Is that true?
Yeah, so I met my roommate online. So Bloomsburg has different pages for social media of honors and incoming freshmen and different clubs and stuff, which is really helpful to meet new people. And so I met my roommate that I have now on there. And without that, I would have had a random roommate. So social media allowed us to find each other, and then now we obviously interact in person. but I think it can be really good to start to develop relationships, especially getting to college. You don't know a lot of people. You don't always know like the clubs, the area, and so it allows you to kind of see people in like similar areas. You go to clubs, you meet those people, and it allows you to develop relationships a little bit easier versus walking in not knowing anyone, and you rely on solely like seeing someone and starting a conversation, which can be a little intimidating and harder.
So it's useful for forming relationships. It's useful perhaps for maintaining relationships. I know a lot of people use it to stay in touch with their friends and family from their hometown when they go away to college. And then one day when you graduate from college and all move to different places, you'll probably use it to stay in touch with people from college. You'll get to see the pictures of their new spouses or their new kids or their new houses or, whatever exciting things are happening in their lives. And it's tough to be overly critical about that. But then we introduce this question of age and experience, and it gets a little bit more complicated. What age do you think is appropriate to start using social media?
Well, the law is 13 years old. I would propose that probably 16 years old is when you're developed and mature enough to make informed decisions about what you're publishing and saying on social media.
I agree with that. I'm thinking like kind of like freshman in high school. So like between like 15 and 16 is kind of when you are a little bit more able to understand the risk of social media and the people out there and really think about how social media will impact your life.
Social media platforms have to ask when you set up an account, what is your age? And as you mentioned, the cutoff is 13. But almost everyone in our class testified to having opened an Instagram account or a Snapchat account or something like that when they were 10 years old or 11 years old, because all they had to do was say in an online form that they were 13, and that was good enough for the platform. Is that a problem?
Well, yeah, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act is a law that pretty much states the social media platforms can't collect information from any child under 13 years old. So that pretty much twists the social media platform's arm into not letting anybody under 13 on, because any kind of information could be as much as like your social security number, or it could be as least as your username. So you can't even form an account without collecting information. So when kids get accounts under 13, they're actively putting the social media platform in a position where they are breaking the law because they don't have any security in effect to monitor what age of kids are on that platform.
People aren't aware of this law. I didn't know it was a thing until we started like researching it. So I think if people know about the law and are informed and can make informed decisions for their child, like as a parent make informed decisions, I think that really helps too with kids staying off the internet, because a lot of parents are not informed and are not necessarily understanding the risk nor the safety of their child when they go onto these platforms.
But is the law enforceable? And by that I mean these kids, you say, who are 10 years old and open an account claiming to be 13. And then the platform necessarily starts collecting some of their information in violation of the law. Does that leave the platform susceptible to penalty? Or is it the child who's breaking the law at that point? In either case, what does the government do about it?
It is the social media's platform. It's their responsibility to monitor that. So there's actually instances where they can receive hefty fines of up to like $10,000 for each individual user that is under 13. So just imagine all the users that are under 13 on all these platforms. Imagine the fine that a big user like Snapchat or Instagram would get if they impose some kind of like artificial intelligence to monitor every account with the least amount of human work, because artificial intelligence is so powerful that it can detect kids under 13 using that app, but they don't want to do that. The social media platforms don't want to do that, because why would they develop an artificial intelligence to get them fines?
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Like, I've not heard anything about Instagram or Snapchat paying enormous fines for violating the, what do they call it, COPPA?
COPPA, yeah.
I have not seen anything in the news about that. And I have to think, given the sample we saw in our class, there are a lot of kids under 13
Absolutely.
who are on these platforms. And if the platforms aren't paying any penalty for that, then is the law just toothless? Let's, though, take a look at some of the particulars here, because you had asked the class to read this article that was posted through the Cleveland Clinic in January of last year called How Social Media Can Negatively Affect Your Child. And they broke it down in a number of different ways. Some of these, no doubt, are going to be familiar here to our listeners. I'll post the link to the article in our show notes on YouTube. But under the list of negative effects of social media among kids, the first one at the top of the list is body image concerns, which is something that I've heard a lot about in classes over the last few years. But maybe you can break it down for us. In what way does social media create body image problems in children?
Body image problems are especially growing on social media, particularly with females. Now, men do experience some body image, but I think a lot of it affects women more because women are held to like this standard to look this way. In their mind, they're like, why don't I look like the influencer here? And so that can develop like body dysmorphia, eating disorders like anorexia. We actually saw like a study that suicide in children, like in these girls 12 to 16, their suicide rate increased by 65%. And part of that is because they feel that they don't look as good as the influencers. When TikTok got banned for a day, a lot of people were like coming out about the truth, like, oh, like I actually had work done to my body, and so this isn't all natural. But they had let all their followers in the like beforehand think that this was natural work, especially like with gym influencers being like, yeah, this is a natural body, and it wasn't. And then they later tell their viewers, and their viewers got really upset. But that causes a lot of issues, especially like for women on the platforms, because they're looking at this body and they think that that's maintainable if they go to the gym, they eat like this, they do these exercises. In reality, like influencers are just skewing our perception of what women should look like and what is capable of the human body. And for young children, like young girls who don't understand that like it's okay to look different, it's okay not to have like this Barbie looking body, it really affects their mentality, how they view themselves, and their self-worth and image, because they start to feel like they don't fit in, that they don't meet society standards, which is completely ridiculous because they're like 10. They should be worried about like whether they're gonna go play outside, not whether their body's feet like meet standards.
I am old enough to remember when the concern about body image was focused mostly on like magazine covers. And today it seems positively quaint to think that the print media had that much influence on people, especially on young people. And if I'm not mistaken, in recent years they have changed Barbie's proportions to make her somewhat more human-like.
Yeah, so the Barbie movie came out. I watched like half of it and I fell asleep.
I did too. I did not care for the Barbie movie.
Like, I thought it was gonna be good, but whatevs. But they did, like, kind of, like, modify her body, where they made, like, different versions of Barbie that are, like, more, like, body inclusive. But I think a lot of people still have this image that, like, women should be very thin and have, like, these curves and whatever. And, like, younger girls, like, don't understand that, like, that's not always achievable or healthy.
No, I think that makes sense. I think that the problem of body image concerns on social media, and probably a lot of these problems, is not a new problem. It's a matter of scale. It's a matter of acceleration, to place this within our course theme. It's one of these things that, maybe when you saw a model on the cover of a magazine and she seemed perfect, it made you feel bad about yourself. And then later on, when they developed technologies to airbrush and, Photoshop these images, then the problem got worse. And then when it was social media, and it wasn't just an image on the cover of a magazine or 50 magazines on the rack at the store, now it's just a constant, endless feed of these images being shoved in your face all day through your phone as you're laying in bed, not sleeping, or doing other like unhealthy stuff. And it's a problem of scale, frequency, ubiquity. And then also, I think it's not just a matter of body image as relayed by professional models. It's also a problem of the filters that a lot of these platforms, maybe especially Instagram, allow you to use to create this impression that you look better than you actually do, or through careful selection of what you post, that your life is better and more glamorous and more exciting than it actually is. And so this social comparison involves not just your physically, but your whole lifestyle is presented in a way that's kind of dressed up and maybe not intended directly, but certainly the profile that you create online is suggested to demonstrate that you are living a good life. And to the degree that someone else is not living the same way, their life is inferior. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like social media, particularly Instagram, many people will take like numerous photos, like at least 10 photos of like the same pose, and they only pick one to post because they feel that that one looks the best. And so Instagram has really become a place where you try to like show off your life and show that like, oh, you're thriving, you're doing very well. Like I have an Instagram page. I'm not purposely gonna post like bad photos like which make me look bad or like don't show me having a good time. People try to have like this like really good self-image online, which is fine and whatever. But it also comes to the point where like it's only happy and positive, and then girls and guys will like look at it and be like, well, my life's not like that. Like I don't experience things like that all the time, and it starts to kind of make their mind wander a little bit.
Well, let's move on then and take a look at problem number 2, which is cyberbullying. And I'm interested to learn that this term is even still used. I know there used to be, 10, 15 years ago, a big sort of public concern about bullying, and then about the cyber version of bullying, which happened online and which was inescapable. These days, the online and the offline are so deeply entangled with people's telephones and iPads and computers and everything being connected to the internet that it's not obvious to me that there's a clear line of demarcation between the offline and the online world. And so to me, like cyberbullying is just, it fits under that larger heading of just bullying in general. Tell us about it. What is cyberbullying? What does it look like today?
Well, I would say cyberbullying actually is a little bit more severe than bullying. As somebody in our class put very well, when you're being bullied in person among children, let's say, in school, you get bullied for however long you're in school, you go home and then it's away. Cyberbullying is different in that way. When you're getting cyberbullied, you always have your phone on you. You are getting ridiculed 24 hours a day if they want to. You can't get away from them. When you go home from school being bullied in person, you get away. That person is always in your pocket, always trying to say something about you.
And even like at school, like you can get away from them and you can tell the teacher like, hey, this kid's bullying me, and the teacher will try to intervene. But with cyberbullying, you can block the person, but it's so easy to make accounts. You don't put your name in, you make like fake accounts, and a lot of people will get bullied on like multiple accounts because their account will get reported for bullying. They'll just make another one continue. So it's a lot more like persistent, and like Brian said, it's always in your pocket. Like it's constantly following you around, which really takes a toll on you.
And also, what do you think is easier? Do you think it's easier to send somebody a message saying, hey, you look hideous in this picture, as opposed to going up to them in person and saying that? That's the difference. Some people don't have the guts to say that in person, but they absolutely do over a phone.
Yeah, it's so easy to like say things over the phone, especially with like anonymous apps. Like at college, we have this app called Yik Yak, which I love, but it's completely anonymous, and so you can say whatever you want on it about like people or whatever, and nobody knows it's you. And so there's a lot of things that are anonymous like this, which is a little scary because you have no idea who's contacting you and who's saying such nasty things to you.
I didn't know Yik Yak was still in use.
Oh, it's in use, yep.
I love it.
I downloaded Yik Yak a number of years ago because somebody told me that somebody had a student had posted something on there about me. And I was like, oh, I'm very curious. And so I went on there, and I think a number of faculty members at the university went on there because they heard that there was discourse happening about them or about their class or something. And then I think there were a number of situations where people went on there and posted threats and said they were going to bring a gun and then the next thing you know, it got revised and changed, and then the people who were like Yik Yak purists in the past were like, we don't like these new changes, so we're going to delete it. And then I thought the app went away entirely, but you're telling me it's back.
Oh yeah, it's definitely back. We talk a lot about Commons and the food at Commons.
It's pretty much mostly food, weather, or like fraternity stuff.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And then you still like upvote or downvote
Yep.
comments if
Oh,
they're
yeah.
Well, yeah, the anonymity of social media, obviously through Yik Yak, but even on platforms where you do identify yourself, it is much easier to be aggressive or confrontational, to say things through the medium of a computer screen that you wouldn't in real life. I think that's a big problem with our society, our political discourse. It's a mess because you have these people tearing each other apart online when if they met in real life, they would probably get along more or less okay, I would think, because at least the norms of etiquette and decorum would make them treat each other like human beings, at least. Yeah, cyberbullying has wide reach. What about online predation? The vulnerability of kids online to adults who would do them harm, potentially adults who are pretending to be kids.
Yeah, this is definitely like one of my big concerns, especially because, like I said, I have like a little sister and she's not allowed to have a phone. She has an iPad, but it's set up. She can't even download apps without my mom's like permission. But I think it's really scary because a lot of her friends have phones and they add people from different schools, different people. They have no idea who they are. And these younger kids don't understand the risk of adding strangers. Now, especially in college, you do add people you don't necessarily know, but you understand how to interact with them, how to keep yourself safe. These younger kids don't, and they'll add them. And there's like people, especially like creepy old men who will pretend to be like a younger guy, and they'll be like, oh, you're so pretty, and little girls fall for that. And so they'll keep talking to them and they'll build this conversation and they'll tell them like personal information. And there's cases where they do get like stalked or kidnapped, and it's just really scary to me as like an older sister to have little kids on social media endangering their safety 24/7.
The stat that's included here in the article is that nearly 6 out of 10 teenage girls report that they have been contacted through a social media platform by a stranger in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, which is shocking to me. That's most of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've had people on Instagram. Now, I have mine private for reasons like this, so only people who I know can see my post, but they can DM you. And there's like creepy guys who like want to be your sugar daddy, and they're like, oh, I'll give you money if you do this. And it's just like terrifying that they're also reaching out to these younger kids who have no idea. They're like, oh, this guy wants to give me money? Okay. Like they don't understand how dangerous and creepy that is.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why somebody wouldn't have their account privatized just to the people that they approve to follow them. To me, that's like the first thing that you do. Unless, I guess, if you want to be an influencer, if you want to build a large following of like thousands, or you want to find a way to monetize this and profit from it, then you can't just make your account private, right?
Yeah, people will like make their profile public because they want to build these followers, because then it's like, oh, like I'm really famous on Instagram, I have a lot of followers, I'm really cool. And even like kids who aren't aspiring to be an influencer, just like teenagers who like, oh, I want to be followed, I want to be liked, they'll leave it open. But they're also leaving that door open to so many other dangerous threats by anyone being able to see what they post. And if you have like tags, like you can add like locations on the things. And so if anyone sees that, they know where you are, and they can connect the dots and figure out where you're from, where you might live or go to school.
And it's especially dangerous today because the young people all want to be influencers when they grow up.
Oh yeah, they want to be YouTubers,
YouTube stars. Scary. The fourth thing they have on this list, and this was one that I was very interested to learn about because this was not really on my radar, is dangerous viral trends.
So there's a couple challenges that come to mind. One most popular, maybe the Tide Pod challenge in, I believe it was 2016.
Yeah, something like that.
Around there. The challenge was just to eat laundry detergent.
Because they looked squishy and they were like fun colors, and kids were like, oh, I want to put this in my mouth. It looks fun.
Which can't be real. I can't accept that this is real.
Well, you might notice that the challenge is to just harm yourself, which seems to be the trend with most of these. For example, a girl in France was performing the Blackout Challenge, which is pretty much just a challenge where you knock yourself out by cutting the oxygen flow to your brain.
You pretty much just choke yourself till you pass out.
That's the whole challenge. The whole challenge is to just choke yourself until you pass out. Well, this girl, who was 10 years old, put a belt around her neck, tightened it up, and asphyxiated herself due to the Blackout Challenge.
What? I mean, why? Like, what? Can anyone just go online and say, like, hey, I challenge you to do this ridiculous thing, and
they'll do it.
And people do it?
Like, yeah, like if someone like, quote, popular, like famous on like Instagram or TikTok is like, hey, we're going to do this new challenge. This looks really fun. People just follow. They don't think for themselves like, hey, this is really dumb. I might die from it. They think they might get likes and be famous from it.
I mean, I remember the ice bucket challenge.
Right.
Do you recall this?
But that's pretty modest.
And the
Yeah.
point of it too, I mean, as I recall, was like you either donated money to this charity or you had to pour like a bucket of water on your head. And it was really popular. And I guess like one takeaway for me with it is that millions of people would rather pour ice water on their head than donate to charity, which I don't know what to make of that. But yeah, like I went on one of my accounts and I had been a number of times like tagged by people who said like, I challenge you to pour a bucket of water on your head. And I was just like, no, thanks. But what is it? Like, what's the psychological explanation for why people are so willing to just be taken up in these trends?
Well, I think that there's that want to have some kind of status online and have that fame. And especially younger kids could see this as like an easy way to get there. If they see their favorite influencer doing this challenge, they're going to think that they're going to get that exact same response from the rest of TikTok or Instagram, per se. So it's just an easy way for a young kid to become famous. But they don't understand that knocking yourself out or eating Tide Pods is dangerous.
Well, the list goes on, and we don't have time to consider everything. But this includes, like, the Cleveland Clinic article cites a study suggesting a correlation between TikTok consumption and tics similar to Tourette syndrome, whereby especially increasingly teenage girls are just, like, repeating these words and phrases that they see on these TikTok videos. There's a whole section on changes in daily behavior like increased irritability and anxiety, depression, sleep issues, low self-esteem, lack of focus and concentration, and it just goes on and on and on. And it just seems to me like whatever benefits a teenager or a child might derive from social media are just subsumed in this avalanche of bad consequences. And so what is your advice maybe to your younger siblings or to parents out there with kids who are interested in getting a cell phone and getting on social media? I mean, what's the takeaway from all this?
Yeah, so my advice is to wait to get a phone. And if you do get a phone, don't have one with like you can download like a whole bunch of apps. Like my first phone was a Go phone. I could text my parents and some family and I could listen to Pandora, and that's all I could do on it. So my advice is don't get a phone. You don't need a phone. Like iPads are cool, especially now that like a lot of like online schooling is taking place. So iPads are helpful. You don't need a phone. It doesn't need to be in your pocket all the time. You're 10, you're 11, you're 12. There's no reason to have it. So I would like hold off on like letting your child get it, because once they get it, it starts the addiction.
I would say, yeah, it's very difficult to stop. I would say I'm addicted to Instagram Reels specifically, which works like TikTok.
TikToks.
I would say just don't get social media. It's not, you don't need it. You could, if you want to message your friends, you don't have to do it through social media. You could just use like a messages app or call them. Go see them in person maybe, just like everybody used to do. The dopamine release that you get from using social media is training your brain to not appreciate things more.
Yeah, a lot of people will look at their phone in the morning, and I know this. I'm pretty sure I did it this morning. I like woke up, I checked my messages, and I went on TikTok and I scrolled for a little bit. But it's like this dopamine release, and you get like this dopamine high, and then the rest of the day you're just kind of like craving it.
Well, I consider myself a pretty laid-back guy, but I have kids, and I'm thinking about just locking them in a tower, you know, until adulthood.
You might want to watch Tangled. I don't think that turned out.
Emma and Brian, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Of course.
Thank you for having us.
This has been The Art of Conversation, a radio show brought to you by the Eileen G. Jones Honors College and the Department of Communication Studies, Media, and Journalism at Commonwealth University in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. As always, I'm your host, Eric C. Miller. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll look for you next time.